They kicked me out with a voicemail. No warning, no conversation. Just my father's cold voice crackling through the speaker. "You're out of the business, Harper. Don't call back." And I didn't. I just replied with one word. Understood. "Hi, I'm Harper Lane, 33 years old, and until last year I was the operations lead at Lane Vale Development, my family's real estate firm based in Savannah, Georgia. If you've ever been betrayed by your own family, share this story, leave a comment, and subscribe, because sometimes silence speaks louder than revenge." Let me tell you how it all went down. I was in my small rented duplex on the east side of town, sitting at the kitchen counter, the voicemail still playing on loop. My thumb hovered over the delete button. My eyes. Just 8 weeks earlier, I was in the glass boardroom overlooking the marshlands, pulling 12-hour days. I kept our coastal condo projects on track, cleaned up budget overages, smoothed investor nerves, and caught issues before they became lawsuits. I wasn't just involved, I was the one keeping everything from collapsing. But the second I opposed Dad's shady beachfront redevelopment deal, I was suddenly disloyal. And just like that, I was erased. On the same day I got pushed out, my older brother Brent was promoted to managing director. This was the same Brent who once panicked because he didn't know what a lien waiver was. The same Brent who used to text me, "Can you fix this before Dad sees it?" And now he's running the company? Sure. Mom never called. Just a text. "Hope you understand, it's for the best. Focus on yourself." Or who? I missed birthdays. I skipped Christmas 3 years in a row. I worked through hurricanes, built their investor decks, even slept in the office when we were closing the Fort Pierce deal. And now I was deleted like an old file. But I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't fight. I went silent. Because they didn't know one thing. I had the receipts. I kept copies of everything. Every off-the-books payment. Every sketchy invoice. Every creative accounting trick they used to hide tax exposure. Not for revenge. At least, not at first. I kept them because I was always the one cleaning up their messes. And deep down, I knew I'd need protection someday. That night, I didn't open my laptop to ruin them. Not yet. Opened it to finally start what I'd put off for years, my own real estate analytics company. No Lane name, no family ties, just me, building quietly. For 14 months, I worked in the shadows. I coded during the day, pitched angel investors at night, and grew a platform that tracked real estate fraud in high-risk zones. Nobody knew I didn't even use LinkedIn. I was invisible. Until another voicemail came, but this time it wasn't from Dad. It was from Brent. His voice? Shaky, rattled. "Harper, I know we haven't talked, but Dad's in trouble. The IRS is involved. We need you, please. Please, just come to the family meeting. We'll explain everything there." The voicemail from Brent sat on my phone like a dare. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because I already knew what was waiting. I walked into the meeting like a ghost no one expected to see again. The same conference room at Lane Vale. Top floor, river-facing windows, still smelled like over-polished wood and desperation. They were all there. Dad at the head, except this time, he didn't stand. Mom pretending her teacup needed adjusting. Brent fidgeting in the seat next to him, trying on that fake strained smile he always used when he was about to ask for something. No one spoke. I didn't either. I just walked to the far end of the table. Dad's old seat. The one he used to say I was too emotional to ever deserve. And I pulled it out, and I sat down. Silence cracked like ice between us. Finally, Brent cleared his throat. "Harper, there's been a situation." I raised one eyebrow. "A situation?" He looked down. Dad spoke, voice lower than I remembered. "We're being audited. The IRS flagged inconsistencies. They're going back 7 years. 7 years. 7 years of me covering for Brent's blown budgets. 7 years of adjusting numbers, cleaning timelines, smoothing over Dad's cash-stuffed side projects. 7 years of being their silent safety net, and they cut me loose like I was baggage. And now they were drowning, and they wanted me to throw the life jacket. I didn't flinch. You need my help? I asked, arms resting lightly on the table. They both nodded, quick, almost desperate. I leaned forward, calm, measured. Why me? Brent's the managing director now. Isn't this his problem? Dad's jaw twitched. You know the system better than anyone. Oh, I know, I said, voice steady. I built it. The air conditioner clicked on, the only sound in the room. And Mom, voice soft. Harper, please, this isn't the time for grudges. Grudges. I remembered lying on a thrift store mattress in a half-furnished duplex, listening to that first voicemail over and over until my eyes burned. I remembered eating canned soup and instant ramen, too proud to call anyone for help. I remembered how fast they erased me, just because I told the truth. Now they wanted mercy? Help, I said slowly. I watched their faces shift, relief flooding in like sunlight through storm clouds. But there's a condition. Brent blinked. Anything. I nodded. I want full access to the books, past and present. Every ledger, every receipt, no redactions, no passwords. Dad's eyes narrowed. Why? I gave a soft smile. Because I don't fix messes for free anymore. I paused. Let that settle. I own what I clean. They looked at each other, nervous, cornered. But the truth was, they didn't have another option. If you've ever been underestimated, pushed aside, or told you didn't belong, stay with me. The next part of this story will show you what happens when quiet strength takes the lead. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Because the moment they gave up on me was the moment I took back everything. They agreed. As I walked out of the boardroom, Brent followed, his loafers nearly silent on the polished floor. Harper, he whispered, catching up just outside the elevator, are you doing this to save us or to bury us? I looked him directly in the eye and said nothing, because honestly, even I wasn't sure anymore. The moment I got access to the internal files, everything began unraveling. There were millions missing, wired through a trail of shell companies registered in the Caribbean and Eastern Europe, buried under vague contractor fees and backdated consultant invoices. And guess whose name showed up on over half of them? Brent's. Not Dad's. Not the CFO. Just Brent. He had been quietly skimming profits for years, behind everyone's back, even Dad's. That's when it hit me. I wasn't kicked out because I disagreed with that shady redevelopment deal. I was kicked out because I got too close to something Brent didn't want me to see. He'd framed it like insubordination, like I was the weak link. And Dad, proud and blind as ever, bought it without question. Mom said nothing, because we don't tear the family apart. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened my laptop, clicked download all, and saved every document into a private folder titled Insurance. Then I opened a second folder. This one was called Rebuild, because while they were busy setting the empire on fire, I had been quietly building something of my own. And the truth? My startup was already making 6 figures a month. Just last week, I'd signed 3 major commercial real estate contracts. One of them, this still makes me laugh, was with a luxury condo group that had just rejected Dad's proposal. I was quietly becoming a name in the same industry they claimed I was too soft for. But I stayed silent, because the plan wasn't just to succeed. It was to succeed so completely, so visibly, that when I finally spoke, the echo would leave them breathless. And the opportunity came faster than I expected. Brent called again, 11:03 p.m. His voice was barely steady. They're freezing our accounts, he said. The audit team, they're asking about of Harper Lane Holdings. Is that you? I smiled. They're saying your company just submitted a buyout offer for 2 of our key assets, at half market price. He was right. I'd made the offer that morning because I knew they were desperate, and because I knew what those assets were really worth and how deeply leveraged they were. They're also asking, Brent said, if you're backing the firm that's been poaching our clients. He was unraveling. Harper, you can't do this. This is our family. You don't destroy your own family. That's when I finally spoke. You destroyed it, I said. The day you lied about me. The day you pushed me out and watched me fall. All I did, I paused, was understand. And then I hung up, because the next morning, I was walking into that office again, but this time not as their employee, as the one holding the offer they couldn't afford to reject. But this time, I wasn't walking in as a daughter, I was walking in as the new owner. That morning, I didn't wear revenge. I wore power, a fitted navy suit, clean ponytail, no makeup, no jewelry, just purpose. My heels clicked down the marble lobby floor of the same glass building where I used to take notes in the corner and pour coffee before meetings I ran in silence. But today, I wasn't there to assist. I was there to take over. The receptionist, new girl, maybe early 20s, froze as I approached. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Lane, are you here for an interview? I smiled gently. No, the meeting. She blinked. With Mr. Lane? I handed her a printed copy of the acquisition notice, signed and notarized. No, I said. About Mr. Lane? I walked past her before she could find her words. Straight into the boardroom. Same chairs. Same long table. Same portraits on the wall. Only difference? This time, they were the ones holding their breath. Dad was at the head of the table. Red-faced, stiff, lips pressed into that disappointed scowl he used to wear like a badge. Brent sat beside him. He looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. Mom kept her eyes fixed on the green of the table, hands folded like a statue. I placed the thick file in the center. You have 48 hours to vacate the properties listed on page 2, I said, voice steady. If you don't contest the buyout, the remaining assets will be transferred to Lane Strategic Holdings, LLC. I paused, letting that land. Which, by the way, I now control. Dad's voice cracked. You're bluffing. I smiled faintly, sliding a second file across the polished wood. Try me. Investor agreements. Legal transfers. Signed, sealed, quiet as snowfall. They'd been outmaneuvered. Legally. Quietly. Brent stood, fists clenched. You wouldn't do this, he spat. We're family, Harper. I turned to him, slowly. You made me family when it was convenient, I said. You made me competition the moment you pushed me out. His jaw locked, his eyes burned. You'll regret this? I walked to the door and turned once more. I already did, I said softly. Every night I cried myself to sleep thinking I'd lost everything. But now I understood. You didn't take anything from me, you freed me. And I walked out. Not in anger, not in tears, but with the calm of someone who built her kingdom from the bricks they threw at her. The elevator opened just as I stepped into the lobby. Outside, my driver waited, engine running. Parked beside the curb was a black sedan with a gold monogram on the door. Harper Lane. The name they tried to erase was now etched in chrome. L.S. Lane Strategic Holdings. And that was just the beginning. 3 weeks later, a headline swept through every major real estate and business outlet from Atlanta to New York. Daughter disowned, now CEO, how Harper Lane took her family's empire from the outside in. It went viral in under 24 hours. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Investors called. Former employees from Lane and Vale reached out, asking if they could join my firm. Reporters stood outside the glass doors of our downtown office building, hoping for an exclusive. But I didn't flinch. I didn't chase the spotlight, because this was never about fame. It was about freedom. One quiet morning, while reviewing zoning plans for a mid-rise development project in Charleston, I got a text from an unfamiliar number. I opened it. The words were short. Familiar. We saw the article. Your father isn't doing well. Everything is falling apart. We didn't know it would end like this. I stared at the message. Not because I didn't know how to respond, but because for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel anything. No anger, no pain, no need for revenge, just peace. A week later, I hosted a private event, not to celebrate what I had taken from them, but to honor what I had built. It was the launch of my nonprofit, the Rebuild Foundation, a resource for young women in business, those who had been pushed aside, underestimated, or dismissed by the very people they trusted, just like I was. As I stood at the podium beneath soft amber lighting, I looked out at the crowd. Mentors, friends, colleagues, people who saw me not for my last name but for my vision. I was once told I didn't belong at the table. I said, voice steady, clear. So I built a bigger one. The room erupted in applause. Later that night, as guests trickled out under a warm southern breeze, I saw a familiar figure standing by the exit. Thinner, quieter. Ren. He waited until I approached. I'm not here to fight, he said. I didn't know you had this in you. I met his eyes. No bitterness, just truth. That's because you never looked past yourself, I replied. He nodded, slow and heavy. You won, Harper. I leaned in. No, Brent, I survived. You just watched. And I turned to leave. The city lights shimmered across the building's glass facade, reflecting not the daughter they once underestimated, but the woman they never saw coming. A CEO, the founder, the architect of her own empire. I kept the voicemail that started it all, not as a symbol of pain, but as proof that sometimes being pushed out is the greatest gift the world can give you. Because the moment I typed understood was the moment I started writing something they could never erase. My legacy. If you've ever been pushed aside, told you weren't enough, or watched the people closest to you choose pride over love, then you understand a piece of my story. And I want to hear yours. Drop a comment below. Tell me what part of this story echoed in your own life, whether it was a betrayal, a moment of doubt, or a quiet comeback no one saw coming. I'm listening, because this space isn't just about my voice, it's about ours. When I lost everything, I thought I was broken, but the truth? I was just getting started. If there's one piece of advice I'd offer, it's this. Don't wait for validation. Build without applause. Heal without witnesses, and when the time comes, rise without warning. People will doubt your strength because they only saw your silence. Let them. Prove them wrong by becoming something they never imagined. If you're still in the middle of your storm, I see you. You're not invisible. You're not weak. You're gathering, you're learning, you're sharpening. And when it's time, you'll walk back into the rooms that once broke you with grace, clarity, and power. If this story moved you, subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that being underestimated is not a curse. It's a setup for your return. And when you do return, don't just knock on the door. Own the building. I'm Harper Lane, and this isn't the end. It's the blueprint for everything that comes next.